This is Just Listen, hosted by George. Today is October the 7th, 2024. Welcome to the podcast. Today, as promised, I'm going to talk about the U.S. government policy on presidential elections with the focus of after the VP debate. As you all know, last Tuesday there was a vice presidential debate. To prep for it, I told you that I was skeptical of why they had to do it in the first place. So I want to start there and work a little bit forward here. And I want to talk about things that they should have talked about during the VP debate. Now, you can see all of the topics that were talked about after the VP debate, how the mainstream medias diced them apart, and it was him against him, and who said what, and all of these things. So you can get that information from other sources. So the first one I want to talk about would be, what are the rules for the moderators during any presidential debate, to include the VP debate? Why is that important? Well, the last two or three, meaning starting with 2016, they actually can cut off your microphone, and they can cut it off whenever they think that it's appropriate to do that. Now, at first, it started with just the moderators deciding that somebody was saying something that was going over their time period, and then they would just cut them off, or somebody would interrupt. Okay, so they tweaked it this last one. The reason I'm bringing it up, because they were just cutting off one party. Now they cut off both of them if it's something that the moderators don't want to hear. Why are they doing that? Because, as you all have know, and you probably have debated before in your life somewhere, when somebody says something that you think isn't true, or if they're trying to make you look bad, of course you're going to jump in there and say something else. Is it the responsibility of the moderators to decide who's right and who's wrong? That's why I said that my idea of it being a think tank and questions being generated automatically with input from voters, that would be most important. Second thing is, who won the debate? Okay, well, the person that won the debate is who we thought won the presidential debate. The spin. It doesn't matter. Why? Because the VP is not the person that you're voting for president. He's part, or she is part of that ticket. So the debate that the mainstream medias are doing, asking, well, yeah, such and such won the debate and here's why and all that. Look at the issues that they were talking about. If you are repeating the same issues that you talked about during the presidential debate, the VP candidates are only going to echo what was said before. They're not going to break from what the presidential candidates said. Well, actually, we should do it this way. So, who won the debate? I would say that it was so useless to have one that it's not relevant. Did it translate into votes for anyone? You, the listener, have to decide that. And this election especially, I really think people made up their minds back in March and April. Now, something else, I was looking at some notes, sorry. So, something else that should have been talked about. Why are people skipping debates? Okay, now think about this. Why would a candidate come to a debate when they know that the questions are going to be said in such a way that comes after them personally or comes after their running mate, or to make them talk about stuff that happened 20 years ago? Now, both sides are doing that. So, again, what was the relevance of the moderators having the questions? Where where was the substance in general for the VPs? The other thing is, what should have been talked about, people are already voting. So a lot of people didn't even tune in because they've already voted and they don't necessarily think that they need to listen to any more of it. The other thing, next thing, going back to the debate itself for the VPs, who did it benefit? Did it benefit the Harris campaign? Did it benefit the Trump campaign? The only entity that it benefited would have been the news agencies and the people that could analyze what each candidate was saying. So they may have got more uh, broadcasting commercial hours, but other than that, I didn't see it. The next one, the fact check during the debates. So I went back and I tried to find out when the fact checking really took off. Two things came to light, actually three. First one was they mentioned Trump a lot in general. So I had to dig deeper to find out when they actually started. Okay, so I went back and checked, and one of them had a 20-page article about that it actually, in their opinion, started with Ronald Reagan when he said that trees cause more environmental damage than other pollutants. And the other side spent 10 years, and it's laughable, trying to say that he wasn't right about that. That's when it started. Second thing is, it intensified with, guess who? Trump. Because prior to that, as you all have known over the years, you have watched presidential debates and VP debates, and the scrutiny of what's being said has not been to the level that it is now. So you're telling me, and I want you to think about this, prior to 2016, no candidate on either side said things that weren't true, that somebody would have to come back and fact check. Let me say that again. Prior to 2016, no politician running for president and with a VP has said anything that wasn't true that needed to be fact checked to the degree that we have right now. That's what they're saying. And this is coming from the news agencies. So why is it that it's so important that everything that comes out of someone's mouth now is so scrutinized? The other thing is to kind of go forward. I wish that they would have talked more about voting. So what they did was they talked about if Trump would accept the outcome of the election. Now think about this for a second. Is the other side going to accept the outcome of the election if it doesn't go their way? Nobody's talking about that. The focus seems to still be on the Republican Party and Trump and what happened last time. That's in the past. We have to move forward. They should be asking both sides that, because if you will remember, after Trump won in 2016, a lot of people did not accept the fact that he won that election. But it didn't get to the level that it got to when the re-election of 2020 came up. Okay. Now, the last thing to talk about is, do we need presidential debates? And I want you to think about that. Last week I talked about some things, and this week as well. If we're going to have presidential debates for a presidential candidate or the VP, we the people are going to have to demand and insist that the news agencies, streaming services, are not in charge of it. How did they get in charge of it in the first place? Think about this. Why are the news agency, and it doesn't matter which one it is, that they make up the questions that they want for the candidates? What are they basing their analysis to get the question from? And I would give them one, polling, okay, but if that's true, why are they asking about if somebody had a DWI 20 years ago or misspoke, or things that somebody did for Access Hollywood 20 years ago? Why does that come up in the questions for a debate? And maybe they need to look up in a dictionary what debate means. The other piece of that is that I believe, and you'll have to go back and check, it used to be a partnership between a think tank and the news agencies. Because I know that CBS, NBC, and ABC actually had a better way. Because if you go back and say, look at Kennedy's debate and Nixon's debate, they were more specific with questions, and the personal questions weren't really in there. I'm sure that they snuck them in occasionally, because of course the news networks do that to get the ratings. We have to demand that the debates are neutral and they are for the benefit of the American taxpayer. Didn't say voter, because people who are paying the bills, especially paying taxes, need to know where the money's going, and they actually need things talked about during these debates and have these candidates answer, not be prepared to give them a canned response. And that is the key to switching it from identity politics during these debates to having it being policy driven, so that the American public can choose the candidate that fits with what they want changed in the country. This is Just Listen, hosted by George. Let me know what you think.